For the newcomer arriving at New Mexico State University, which way is in? There is, of course, the entrance at the east end of University Avenue that leads into the Pan American Center and all those exciting sports and cultural events. At the western end, one enters campus amid farm animals and agricultural fields. In between, there's a spina leading to the Horseshoe and beyond, and Jordan Street, which dead ends at the Student Center. The fact is, for the first-time visitor to campus, there's no obvious doorway, a place that says you have arrived at NMSU.
There's lots of ways in, and that's the problem. There's no priority, there's no clarity, nobody knows where to go when they arrive. And it's really a challenge for the first-time visitor and even an occasional user to kind of figure the university out and find a proper way to engage it.
Steve Gift is with an architectural firm that helped NMSU draw up its new master plan that Regents okayed 2 years ago. He and his team are back, and at this cozy public hearing, getting public input on one of the signatures of that plan, a formal entrance to campus. He told this small but focused group that while the campus itself has some incredible assets, the casual passerby might never know it.
Much of it is very negative. Greenhouses from the south, what almost looks like public housing on parts of the interstate, just not a really great presentation of an institution of this quality.
To make matters worse, he says University Avenue itself does not currently lend itself as a welcome mat to the university. On the university side of the street, there are walls, hedges, and buildings, even museums like this one with no way in from the street.
What we finally decided to call this, it was like two people sharing space, but with their backs turned to one another. The city was looking inward towards itself, the university inward towards itself, and there was no kind of embracing or reaching across the street in a productive handshake.
And if the university has no entrance, says Gift, it also has no defined center either. Some people think of the Horseshoe as a kind of central place, but Gift says students tell him it's not. Decades ago, when Milton Hall was the student union, it helped define a center of sorts, which has since been lost in asphalt and parking lots. It's these factors that drove university planners to come up with what they think is the best place for a university front door, one that would lead to a newly defined campus heart and also help it turn outward to the city, Jordan Street.
So the two things came together around this kind of central lawn and what we called the Jordan Street entrance for the university. And that became a really powerful concept that combined with the notion of creating a town gown seam that was really representative of the university's potential and its future.
Here's the vision. It's just a drawing right now, an idea. It's a definition of the University Avenue-Jordan Street intersection with a divided entrance to the campus, flanked by mixed-use buildings with retail services at street level and housing located above.
But the notion here is that if this is University Avenue and this is Jordan Street as we know it today, that by creatively kind of combining housing and commercial space on the street, perhaps long-term with a parking deck, a visitor center, student services, and the already in place assets of this center, the library, and other assets of the university that people from the community are encouraged to visit, that we could really make the university accessible and understandable.
The new entrance would change the whole nature of University Avenue, making it more pedestrian-friendly.
Urban, for some people, is not entirely a good word, but certainly more of a town street with less presence or less dominance of the automobile, a real pedestrian environment with traffic calming measures, landscape planning to kind of isolate the pedestrian from the car, make the car slow down by virtue of it, a median as a position of refuge for people trying to cross the street.
Anchoring the whole project, a Barnes & Noble bookstore. The private company has already taken over the operation of the campus bookstore. In the new development, the bookstore would be front and center, designed to bring in pedestrian traffic and ultimately other shops and restaurants that would make University Avenue a destination of choice for students and everyone else in the community.
The idea here is to embrace the street, not to retreat from it, not to put the car in front of it, not to offer up the university as a collection of parking lots and service docks, but to really put the better stuff of the university, the best face, if you will, out on the street and to meet the town and the visitors and the student life of the university in a very productive way out on the street in a way that's engaging.
And since under this plan, the university will be reaching out to the city in turn finds itself obligated to do likewise and hug the university back, which is easier said than done, because in 1992, when the university was still looking inward and not outward, the city rezoned its side of University Avenue in a way that makes it difficult for developers to establish pedestrian-friendly businesses along the street today. To point out some of the existing problems and get input on how to resolve them, city and university planners held a walking tour along University Avenue for residents. The participants were asked, as they made observations, to make notes on colored Post-its, dealing with issues like safety, mobility, enjoyment, and comfort, things that really matter to pedestrians. As the group set out on this inner-city hike, people immediately identified problems, like all the traffic and the noise, poorly maintained sidewalks, and barriers to buildings on the north side of the street.
These are kind of the moat, as it's been referred to.
Students complain there's not much on the north side of the street to attract them, and crossing the street is a hazard. Students are known for darting across University Avenue mid-block, outside of crosswalks, making this stretch of roadway one of the deadliest for pedestrians and bikers in the city. Much of the northern side of the street is devoted to residential housing, a neighborhood that is not doing particularly well. Apartment buildings with worn facades, unkept structures, a couple of churches. The reason for all this? The old city zoning rules we mentioned earlier.
What we have are 6 areas, and within each of these areas there are a list of allowed land uses, which vary quite a bit from one area to the next. For example, in Area 1, it's all different commercial uses, whereas in Area 2, it's primarily residential and limited office uses. One of the things that we're looking at as part of this plan revision is what land uses should be allowed where in order to create the kind of corridor that we want in terms of being pedestrian friendly with destinations and things like that, balancing that against not wanting to generate a tremendous amount of automobile traffic only.
Woo!
Even this newer development of retail shops, anchored by Kinko's, is geared more for cars than pedestrians.
The door to Kiva Juice ought to be right here. I ought to be able to walk right in.
One reason you can't walk in right off the street is a city zoning rule requiring all structures here be set back 20 feet from the right-of-way.
See, this is what we don't like about the existing requirements for setback give you front door parking instead of, yeah. Whereas I would love that bank, as pretty as it is, to be right here.
The city is thinking about changing the setback requirement because businesses want them to. This new development, centered around a Starbucks, was only possible because it was granted a variance from the zoning setback law.
This is, I think, the only place that specifically tried to orient toward the street. Now, we have, because this property was in the floodplain, it had to be elevated a bit, and so we have a wall that kind of runs down, but it does have several access points across the top. This development had to get a variance, actually, because it's not 20 feet back from the right-of-way. So they had to go through the committee and to the Planning and Zoning Commission to get specific approval for moving it closer.
Across the street from here, the university plans to build a new $37.5 million arts complex with a 500-seat theater. And just west of that, a hotel and civic center will be built on the university side of the street, transforming this stretch of the roadway, where right now land use is quite restricted.
that's going to be something that's probably going to change regardless of what we do. People are going to be coming in when the convention center gets built. They're going to be coming in for zone change requests all the time because the property values are going to be increasing. There's going to be a lot more pressure for commercial and things like that. And that's one of the main reasons why we wanted to revisit the corridor as a whole, because if we don't plan for everything holistically, we're going to end up planning for it piecemeal by default.
But the focal point of the project, Jordan Street.
The idea is, and the concept behind it is that it is something that is quite noticeable, and would also begin to be one of the, not the first, but a major project where the university begins to look north to the city and to be a participant in the process of being a university and city. And so we see this as a very important, we call it town and gown, but a very important theme where a city and a university come together and they turn and face each other, as opposed to what you see now are predominantly parking lots, loading docks, locked doors.
As the planners, both from the city and the university, continue to work with residents on their vision for a new university front door in public meetings like this one, they offer views, images of what might one day be.
These are some early diagrammatic images. Technology makes it possible to kind of mock up potential realities.
This image is more corner-based, with the future Barnes & Noble facing University Avenue. But another conception is more biased toward Jordan Street, with the bookstore facing that street. There's also a courtyard option with a thinner building, and a low-rise option with the housing on one side and retail shops on the other. Whatever design is finally selected, the mixed-use gateway project would likely become Phase 1, followed by projects that would fill out the district. It's a process that seems to be capturing the imagination of lots of people. Suggestions from that walking tour show a desire for a whole new experience along University Avenue. At the public hearings, participants put their thoughts into pictures on a 1:30 scale map of the street.
If we can develop an area right here that can be very vibrant, I mean, everybody, and then from there, everything grows. This is the nucleus, and everything grows from there, back.
So we're going to try to address the entrance to the university at this corner, and just look at what's happening retail-wise on this side of the street, what's going to happen on this corner.
What I put here was a sky bridge.
Sky bridge.
What we'd love to see here, though, are the utilities put underground, for sure.
Yeah, that would also be wonderful, yes.
It would dress that up.
So for now, it's still only ideas, but ones that in the months and years ahead will begin to take shape and eventually reshape a main city artery from a border into a destination.
We want to build a new legacy that, this generation's contribution to what is already a fine place.